The 5-minute chaos reset. Picture this. You've had a brutal day and your boss criticized your work. Your partner snapped at you and you feel that familiar tightness in your chest, and that spiral of thoughts won't stop. And before you even realize it, you're drinking and you're reaching for that drink. Not because you want it, but because you needed to shut off that noise. And here's what's actually happening in that moment. Your brain has been hijacked. Your thinking mind has gone offline and your nervous system is running the show. But what if I told you that there's a way that you can interrupt that spiral in just 5 minutes? A science-backed technique that can bring you back to yourself before you make choices you'll regret. So today we're exploring what we call the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. And it's an emergency reset button for your nervous system that actually works. So when you're overwhelmed, stressed, or spiraling, a tiny almond-shaped part of your brain it's called the amygdala takes over. And this is your threat detector. And it's an ancient part of your brain, and it's designed to keep you alive when facing real danger. So the problem, your amygdala can't differentiate between a trigger and or a critical email. So when it perceives the threat, it triggers your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, and your heart races, your breath quickens, and stress hormones flood your system. And here's a critical part. When this happens, your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that is responsible for rational thinking and decision making, goes offline. And you cannot think your way out of this state. So this is why so many people reach for the alcohol in these moments. Your rational brain is offline and your unconscious pattern takes over. You're not making a conscious choice, and you're following a deeply ingrained neural pathway that says stress equals drink and drink equals relief. But there's another way. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique uses something that neuroscientists call the bottom-up regulation. So instead of trying to think your way out of the panic, you use your senses to send direct safety signals to your brain. And research shows that 76.9% of the people prefer grounding techniques because they're very practical and they don't require special tools. So studies show that a consistent practice can reduce anxiety by a whopping 62%. And here's what's happening neurologically speaking. When you deliberately engage your 5 senses, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, so your body's brake pedal. This is the rest and digest response that calms everything down. So the sensory information travels through your vagus nerve, sending a message to your brain that you're safe, that the threat has passed. As this happens, your prefrontal cortex comes back online and your rational brain returns. And suddenly you have choices again. So let me walk you through this and how to do this, which is awesome, and you can do it anywhere you are. So the first step would be 5 things that you can see. So look around right now and name 5 specific things. Don't just say a chair. You can say a wooden chair with a horn armrest. The more detail, the better. Each detail activates different neural pathways, and it pulls your brain all the resources that it's got away from the panic spiral. So the step 2 would be 4 things that you can touch. So bring awareness to your physical sensation. Feel your feet on the floor and notice the texture of your clothing against your skin. Touch something that is nearby and that it's smooth and it could be your phone case, it could be the rough table edge. This grounds you in your physical body. A third step would be 3 things that you can hear. So tune into the sounds. Maybe it's the hum of the refrigerator or the traffic outside or your own breathing. This neutral sounds rewind your nervous system, and it reminds your nervous system to stay present in the moment and not in the imagined catastrophe that your mind is creating. The 4th step would be 2 things that you can smell. Notice any scents in your environment. The lingering aroma of the coffee or the neutral smell of the fabric. If you can't smell anything, that's okay. You can acknowledge that too. Even that awareness can ground you. And then the 5th step would be 1 thing that you can taste. So bring attention to the taste of your mouth. Maybe it can be a mint from the toothpaste or coffee, or a neutral taste like your saliva. This final sensory anchor completes the complete circuit. So here's where it becomes transformational for your relationship with drinking. The moment when you reach for that drink to try and numb out any feeling, that's when your unconscious mind is running the automatic program. But the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique creates that what neuroscientists call sensory competition. So your brain has limited processing ability. And when you activate multiple sensory pathways simultaneously, you are essentially forcing your anxious thoughts to compete with neural resources. So the urge to drink doesn't disappear instantly, but it loses its grip. So your prefrontal cortex comes back online, and you can have a choice. So many people who struggle with alcohol aren't just battling the habit. They're trapped in a cycle of shame and guilt. And you drink to numb the stress, and you wake up regretting it. And that regret creates more stress. So you drink again. And the grounding breaks that cycle, creating a pause. In that pause, you can practice 2 things that neuroscientists show that actually rewire your brain, which is forgiveness and gratitude. So after you ground yourself, place 1 hand in your heart and say to yourself, I forgive myself for reaching for comfort in ways that didn't serve me, and I'm learning a different way. Research shows that self-compassion can activate the same neural networks as receiving compassion for others. So you are soothing your own nervous system. Then it's important for you to identify 1 thing you're grateful for in that moment, which could be, I am grateful because I paused. I am grateful for this breath. I am grateful for my body and giving it another chance. Studies show that gratitude practices reduce the activity in the brain's default mode network, which is the network responsible for the rumination and negative self-talk. So you're interrupting that downward spiral in a neurological level. And here's something crucial. The best time to practice grounding is when you are calm. So your brain learns it the best when it's not in crisis mode. If you practice the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique during peaceful moments, you are building the neural pathway. And then when chaos hits, that pathway is already there and ready for you to access. So every time you choose the grounding over drinking, you're not just getting through the moment. You are physically changing your brain. And this is neuroplasticity in action. The neural pathway that says stress equals drink weakens. And the pathway that says stress equals ground, breathe, and choice strengthens. So with consistent practice, studies show that you can strengthen the connections between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. So your brain becomes better at emotional regulation, and you become less reactive less reactive to triggers. So the next time chaos hits, and it will, because that's life, you don't have to reach for a drink to silence the noise. You have another choice and you have another option, which is 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This isn't about perfection. Some days you will catch yourself mid-reach and ground yourself. Other days you might not catch it until later, and that's okay. The neural pathway is building with every attempt. So what you're really doing here is not changing the unconscious response to stress. You are moving those wires around, and when you combine the grounding with forgiveness and gratitude, you're not just managing the symptoms, you are transforming from the inside out. So remember, transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. If what we talked about today clicked for you, and you're noticing that your relationship with drinking needs a shift, Unconscious Moderation app is here to support you. And we help you rewire those unconscious patterns to transform your perspective and create a lasting change from the inside out. So it's important for you to stay conscious and stay free.